What's going on, guys? TK here, and this is going to be my first video in a series for Dead by Daylight. I'll be going through hopefully a full breakdown of the game itself to give you some general insight on how it's played and what's in it for you. And by the end of this video, it should help you decide if you want to start playing Dead by Daylight. If you want me to go into detail of any of the topics that will be discussed, make sure you leave a comment below so I can figure out if I can make a video for that topic. Enjoy! Dead by Daylight is a survival horror video game developed by Behavior Interactive and published by Starbreeze Studios. Dead by Daylight was released for the PC in June 2016 and can be grabbed on the Steam market. It was also released for the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One home consoles in June 2017. The plot of the game revolves around something called an entity. It's this dark evil presence that brought out the killers from existence and demands to hunt down the survivors and sacrifice them. The entity is basically your evil demon archetype that needs souls in order for it to survive. One session of Dead by Daylight will require 5 players total. A team of 4 survivors will play against 1 killer in a procedurally generated map. There is a total of 14 locations where the killers are based off. Both killers and survivors are required different goals and objectives to win the game. When playing as a survivor, you see the world in third person and have the advantage of a wider field of view. The killer, on the other hand, will be playing in first person, a small price to pay for being in the front seat of a all-you-can-kill buffet. The survivor's goal is to escape the enclosed area, which can be done in 2 ways. Survivors must work together to repair a certain amount of disabled generators. 5 generators in total for a full 4-man team. Anyone here? This in turn will power up a switch to open 2 metal doors in a map. Easy, right? Not quite. Generators take some time to be repaired and produces a slightly distracting machine sound when you're close to fixing it. It actually indicates to the killer that someone is working on a generator. Once the generator has been completely repaired, it alerts the killer the exact location of the repaired generator, which acts as a beacon for your doom. To make it more exciting, skill checks are included while survivors are repairing generators. Survivors have to quickly press a key to hit a skill check, or they are penalized by the generator, creating a loud explosion. Putting back the repair progress and alerting the killer of its location. Another way to escape as a survivor is to be the only survivor left. When everyone else in your team is dead and at least 2 generators have been repaired, then a randomly generated escape hatch, or what they call a black clock, will appear in the map for you to drop in and go bye-bye. Of course, until you lose all of your sanity trying to find it, while ignoring the trauma you had to experience watching your 3 best friends get murdered in front of you. But hey, it's still a good trade-off. When a killer is in near proximity, survivors will start hearing either a heartbeat or a specific killer's creepy music. The sound and music intensifies whenever he is at striking range. You can imagine the level of terror this puts a survivor in-game. It's like watching a slasher film, but you're the star. Killers also produce a red light coming out of their eyes, which shows that the killer is very, very near you and looking at your direction. All these interactions keeps the experience tense for the survivors and make a simple job of repairing a generator mean life and death. Survivors can walk, crouch, and run, but know that running should not always be used. Running leaves red glowing scratch marks on your path that can only be seen by the killer. These marks fade out for a few seconds but could lead the killer to you. In addition, jumping through windows and obstacles while running produces a notification to the killer if near. Sometimes, hiding from sight will be your best option instead of running for dear life. Now, this doesn't mean that the survivors are helpless against killers. That would be no fun at all. The survivors can use all that's available to them to juke the killer. This includes hiding behind objects, jumping through windows and obstacles, camping inside buildings and lockers, blending in the surroundings, and pretending to be foliage. Survivors can also use pallets placed around the map to block the path of the killer while being chased, but know to use this sparingly. Once used, the killer can destroy it and cannot be used again. A pallet, when taken down directly in front of the killer, stuns them for a short period of time and forces them to look down to break line of sight. All survivors have the ability to heal other fellow survivors. Whenever someone is limping, taken down, or placed on a hook by the killer, they have the option to go and help the others. Also, survivors have the ability to see the auras of limped and hooked survivors to help them for a save. A huge part of playing the survivor is by doing altruistic tasks like these. It is essential that survivors understand that there is a bigger chance of surviving if you have more people working against the killer than doing it all by yourself. Note also that when healing others, people can work together to make the heals faster. Healing also triggers a skill check, just like the generator. Fail the skill check and the one being healed will start screaming for pain, which stops your healing progress and will definitely alert the killer of your location. So before you start touching people, be prepared. Survivors will also have an option to bring with them items to aid in their escape. This includes medkits to heal themselves and others faster, flashlights to blind the killer for short periods of time, enough for you to lose them, toolboxes to speed up the generator repair process, and sabotage hooks disabling them for 3 minutes. Maps to track generators, exit gates, and hatches to plan your objectives, and keys to open the hatch quicker. Add-ons can be attached to these items to increase an ability. This provides the survivor flexibility for builds of items at their disposal. Note that when an item's charge, indicated by an item health bar, has been depleted, or when a survivor dies, the item will be gone. Survivors can also look for items inside randomly generated chests across the map. Searching for the chests, however, makes a slight trashing tool noise and can be heard by an observant killer. Be cautious. Players can choose from 11 survivors now available to date, 4 of which are downloadable content and can be purchased online. Each character have common and unique perks to help them survive and escape the killer. Free-to-play survivors include Dwight Fairfield, a nervous leader, Meg Thomas, an energetic athlete, Claudette Morel, a studious botanist, Jake Park, a solitary survivalist, Nia Carlson, an urban artist, William Bill Overbeck from Left 4 Dead, an old soldier, David King, a rugged scrapper, and for the downloadable content survivors, we have Laurie Strode, a determined survivor from the Halloween chapter, Ace Visconti, a lucky gambler of Flesh and Mud, Feng Min, a focused competitor from The Spark of Madness, and Kenton Smith, a resolute dreamwalker from A Nightmare on Elm Street. For a more in-depth look, I will leave them for another video. Now, let's talk about the killer. As a lone player, your goal is to kill the survivors. Simple enough. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Killers cannot run or crouch, but can walk slightly faster than that of a survivor. However, the killer is slow when doing other interactions, such as climbing through windows. Killers also go through a wiping animation on their weapon once they hit a survivor, which also gives a survivor a chance to escape a second blow. They will keep up if they are chasing you, as there is also a new mechanic called Bloodlust that enables the killer to get another speed boost if they are chasing a survivor for more than 12 seconds. This prevents new killers from being sucked into an infinite chasing loop exploited in the map, which a lot of veteran players tend to do very often. All killers have the ability to see locations of generators, meat hooks, and totems, and appear to them as auras all throughout the map. This is in order for them to quickly patrol generators and plan where to hook a downed survivor. The killer's goal is to capture the survivors and kill them with their weapon. Survivors can only take 2 strikes from the killer. First strike will put them in a damaged state, and the second one will completely immobilize them, at which the killer can pick them up and hang them in placed meat hooks around the map. As mentioned, some killers have specific skills to instantly put a survivor into a dying state, or an instant down attack. This saves some time for killers, as he or she does not need to hit a survivor twice. But this would require the killer to perform certain maneuvers and conditions to successfully achieve a strike. Another way to instantly grab a survivor is to catch them while they are bolting into objects, like windows and pallets, inside a locker while they are repairing a generator, helping a survivor off a hook, and attempting to escape through an escape hatch. A neat grab animation will be triggered, which proves quite satisfying if achieved. There are 2 phases when a survivor is placed on the meat hook. First phase, the first 60 seconds, hook players can attempt to escape with a 4% chance per attempt. This is at the cost of speeding up the first phase to phase 2, the struggle phase. The entity can almost taste that soul and is trying to kill you itself. The last 60 seconds on the meat hook requires the player to repeatedly press a key or a button to slow down the process of death, and hope that someone takes them off the hook. This phase does not give them the chance to attempt to escape by themselves. Also, stopping from pressing that button instantly kills the player. At any of the phases, as long as the player is not dead, other survivors can attempt to save and get the survivor off the hook. Just like the survivors, you can choose from 10 different killers, 4 of which is also downloadable content and can be purchased online. Much like the survivor, each killer has his and her own unique ability and perks to aid them in sacrificing those cute little survivors. The trapper has the ability to use bear traps. He can place these traps in areas where survivors will not notice them. Once a survivor is trapped, a notification and aura of the survivor will appear for the trapper. If the survivor is trapped, they will still be able to attempt to escape from the trap, with around a 25% chance each attempt. If the trapper reaches you and you have not escaped the trap, he can grab you for a hook. The Wraith can be invisible and stalk survivors. While invisible, the Wraith can be considerably faster and does not produce a terror rages. While invisible, the Wraith is unable to attack survivors. The Wraith can switch from invisibility and out of it. Doing so will produce an eerie wailing sound by him hitting a skull against a cast iron bell. The Wraith has to go out of invisibility in order for him to attack survivors. The Hillbilly. He uses a chainsaw to rush you in a straight line and will instantly down survivors with it. The chainsaw can also instantly destroy pallets. One drawback of the Hillbilly's chainsaw attack is turning. It's really difficult and will require the killer to include an add-on to make it considerably easier. The Hillbilly is one of the faster moving killers when the chainsaw is used correctly from one generator to another, but it creates a loud sound that alerts survivors. He has also a primary weapon if he opts to just bonk survivors in the head 2 times instead. The Nurse. She can teleport at the distance depending on how long a teleport is charged. The Nurse can blink for a total of 2 times or more depending on, the items she uses, but normally it's just 2. By the end of at least 1 blink, the Nurse will be stunned for a short period of time, forcing her to look down at the ground and break line of vision. The stun duration will be longer depending on how many blinks are used, and if the Nurse follows up the blink with an attack. The Nurse is one of the slowest killer in the game when walking, but have the greatest range theoretically because of her teleportation. The Shape, Michael Myers from Halloween, has a unique skill which allows him to become stronger as he stalks the survivors. Stalking is essentially just maintaining line of sight of the survivors while pressing a button. This in turn charges up his evil within and goes to 3 different stages. Once he reaches stage 3, this will give him the ability to instantly down survivors in just 1 hit. The Shape also has the shortest terror rages of all the killers that evil within 1, which means essentially you won't know he's coming not until he hits you at the back or grabs you. The Hag uses phantasm traps, just like the Trapper. When sprayed by survivors, the traps produce images of the Hag. It's a nice butt-clenching experience. Furthermore, the Hag can teleport to these images if she is near the vicinity, which adds a level of 3D to that experience. And she's a handful. The Doctor uses shock therapy to make his victims insane and delay them from doing their tasks, and alerts the Doctor their location. Players can reach a level of madness where they will regularly scream to reveal their position and unable to do any interactions on the game unless they snap out of it. The Doctor is one of the greatest trackers in the game, as he effectively manages survivors' location easily with that skill. The Huntress can throw axes from a distance. She is currently the only ranged killer in the game. Unique to the Huntress is also her lullaby, as she constantly sings a lullaby as part of her terror rages. Makes you want to come closer and be cradled with a tomahawk. No? The Cannibal, Leatherface, uses a chainsaw much like the Hillbilly, with some differences. The Cannibal's chainsaw attack can be slightly adjusted in position, meaning the player has better control of the location of the chainsaw hits. If he hits directly into an obstacle, he goes to a tantrum and just, swings around the chainsaw and don't get hit. He'll still go down. Alternatively, the Cannibal can use a sledgehammer, just like the Hillbilly, instead if he wants a slower death for the survivors. The Nightmare, the newest killer in the game, Freddy Krueger, the newest killer. And again, I just said that. Is always on the dream world, which puts him permanently invisible to the survivors. His terror rages includes a Nightmare on Elm Street lullaby, much like the Huntress, but only creepier. He can pull survivors into the dream world by putting them to sleep. That will be the only time he can be able to kill them. He can also detect survivors' auras outside his terror rages, which can be a nifty ability while tracking them. That is if they're in the sleep phase. Now, these are very rough descriptions of the killers, but it should give you a general idea what you will be using or going up against. Both survivors and killers are able to unlock items, offerings, and perks from the Blood Web. Everything that players do inside the game produces blood points and act as an in-game currency to get them items off the Blood Web. put it simply, if you do well in a game and achieve your goals and objectives, you get more blood points. It will help you progress your character to get the skills it needs to make your life easier the next game. But just a quick note, offerings are used by both killers and survivors to affect a certain condition in a game. Add-ons boost items to increase its effectivity. Both these items are consumed after the match. Items, on the other hand, can still be used as long as the survivor lives, gets out, and the health bar of the item is not depleted. The blood web also indicates what the character's level and progress is. Once all items are purchased in an existing blood web, it generates a new blood web and adds a level to the character. You have used the blood points too. Now, blood points are universal in the sense that if you have gained a blood point from any player and role, killer or survivor, you can use those blood points on another specific killer or survivor. Like what was mentioned earlier, blood points can be gained in-game when doing specific tasks for a certain role. Each survivor and killer needs to achieve 4 different tasks during a match, apart from their main goals of escaping and killing. Survivors earn rewards through survival, basically escaping and staying alive and getting off the hook. Objectives: repairing generators, opening gates, also getting successful skill checks. Boldness: escaping a chase by the killer, standing around the killer, stunning the killer, sabotaging hooks. Altruism: saving others from the hook, healing others, distracting the killer. Now, killers earn rewards through brutality, catching a survivor, hitting them with a weapon, destroying a pallet. Deviousness: injuring a survivor, setting traps, and catching survivors with it. Generally, using the killer's skill against the survivor. Hunter: obtained after chasing a survivor or finding a survivor or catching a survivor midway through a pallet or grabbing them off a locker or window. Sacrifice: putting someone on a hook or having someone complete phase 2 or the struggle phase and completing a sacrifice or just killing them. Just briefly also include our daily rituals for killers and survivors that the game randomly sets on your account for you to achieve to get more blood points. Most of the rituals require you to use a specific character or a killer and sometimes can be easy or difficult. If you like setting mini goals, you might want to look at the daily rituals too. And lastly, the Shrine of Secrets. The shrine refreshes weekly and survivors can get unique teachable perks from killers and survivors, and that's gonna be discussed in other videos. It's just good to know. It's there. It's just there. In a nutshell, Dead by Daylight is essentially a very brutal and exciting game of tag. Using different survivors and killers with a combination of perks and items makes every experience delightful. Whether you play this with your friends or with complete strangers, Dead by Daylight still proves to be a go-to game for me on those darkly moonlit nights. This is all I have for this game, and I'm fairly new to it, so I have to date around 50 plus hours into this game. I have done a considerable amount of research to make this video, and I really hope that I've covered most of the important parts of the game for newcomers. If you want me to discuss any topic in detail, please leave a comment. If you like this video, please like the video. If you haven't yet, you can subscribe to the channel, and I'll be continuing the series for the guide of the game, Dead by Daylight. And again, this is TK. Thanks for watching. See you next time.